Peppa suggests her friends play hide and seek in the yard. George closes his eyes and starts counting to 10 by the big tree. Peppa hides behind the swings while Susie runs to the old shed. George finishes counting and opens his eyes, but the yard seems empty. He looks for Peppa behind the swings, but only finds her red dress. George calls for Susie, but only strange echoes come from the shed. Mummy Pig comes out of the house asking where the other children are. George points to empty spaces where his friends were hiding. Daddy Pig joins the search, but cannot find anyone anywhere. The family searches the entire house, looking in every corner and gap. In the nursery, toys lie as if someone was just playing there. In the kitchen, 3 teacups sit, but one of them is empty. Grandpa Pig comes to visit and asks about the missing children. He tells an old story about children who played hide and seek. In that story, children hid so well they were never found again. George hears Peppa's laughter but cannot tell where it comes from. In the evening, the family has dinner with extra plates on table. At night, George wakes up and sees shadows in his room. The shadows move and whisper, "We are still playing hide and seek." In the morning, George wakes up alone and the house feels too quiet. A sunny day illuminated Peppa Pig's house, filling it with familiar laughter. Peppa and George played in their room, where a bunk bed stood against the wall. George below, Peppa above. Mummy Pig cooked in the kitchen and Daddy Pig read the newspaper in the living room. Everything was as usual, but a slight, almost imperceptible tension hung in the air. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Susie Sheep stood on the doorstep, but her gaze was unusually empty and her movements stiff. She didn't smile as always and didn't jump with joy. Susie Sheep entered, her steps heavy, her gaze fixed on emptiness. Mummy Pig and Daddy Pig exchanged worried glances. Susie slowly approached George, her shadow looming over him. George felt a chill. His toys fell from his hands. Suddenly, Susie Sheep grabbed George, her grip strong and unexpected. George cried out in fright. Peppa froze. Mummy Pig and Daddy Pig rushed to them, but it was too late. Susie disappeared with George, leaving only an ominous silence. Peppa cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. Mummy Pig hugged her, trying to comfort her. Daddy Pig searched the room, looking for any clue. The air was filled with the smell of fear and despair. Suddenly, a shadow resembling a spider appeared on the wall. It was Spider-Man, his suit dark and ominous. He looked at Peppa, his eyes glowing in the darkness. Peppa felt hope, but also fear. Spider-Man pointed to the window, his gesture decisive. Peppa understood she had to follow him. Mummy Pig and Daddy Pig nodded, their faces pale. They set off into the unknown. They walked through a dark forest. The trees seemed alive, their branches reaching out to them. The sounds of the forest were frightening. Every rustle made them jump. Peppa held her mother's hand tightly. Ahead, an old abandoned hut appeared, its windows broken, its door creaking in the wind. Strange sounds like growling came from inside. Spider-Man stopped, his body tensed. Inside the hut, it was dark and cold. George's broken toys lay on the floor. Venom sat in the corner, his eyes burning red. He held George, who was unconscious. Peppa screamed. Spider-Man lunged at Venom. A fight began. Venom was strong, but Spider-Man was agile. Mummy Pig and Daddy Pig tried to help George. The battle was brutal and intense. Spider-Man defeated Venom, his body crumbling into dust. George was saved, but he was scared. Peppa hugged him, her tears now tears of joy. They returned home, but they would never forget that day. Evil can hide behind any door, but good will always prevail. Lost episode of Peppa Pig that never aired. The sunny day illuminated Peppa Pig's house, but shadows were gathering. Daddy Pig read the newspaper, his eyes scanning the news. Mummy Pig cooked, her movements tense. Peppa and George played in their room, the bunk bed against the wall, George below, Peppa above. Suddenly, a strange sound came from the street, making everyone freeze. The sound was like a whisper, but it penetrated the depths of the soul. Daddy Pig slowly approached the window, his face pale. A shadow flickered outside, too large for an ordinary day. Mummy Pig hugged George tightly, her heart pounding. Peppa felt a chill, piercing her to the bone. The shadow drew closer, and it became clear that it was something alive, dark, and menacing. It moved silently, like a ghost, but its presence was undeniable. Everyone held their breath, awaiting the inevitable. The creature stopped directly in front of the house, its silhouette blocking the sun. There was nothing in its eyes but emptiness and ancient evil. It raised its hand, and the house trembled at its touch. Peppa closed her eyes, wishing it was just a bad dream, but the nightmare was just beginning, and no one knew what the next moment would bring. A sunny day illuminated Peppa Pig's garden. Peppa and George noticed strange things. A ball rolled on its own. A swing swayed gently with no wind. They decided it was a new, invisible friend. George was delighted, giggled, whispered into the void. Peppa felt a slight unease. The invisible friend became George's constant companion. Their games grew stranger. George played hide-and-seek where only he saw his playmate, or held tea parties where cups floated. Peppa tried to join, but George waved her off, saying it was their game. He became quieter, his gaze often fixed on nothing. Responses grew short. Mummy Pig found this new quiet in the house soothing. She didn't notice her son drifting away, only enjoying the calm. The invisible influence gently enveloped her, making her less attentive to Peppa's worries. Daddy Pig felt something was wrong, but couldn't pinpoint what. His attempts to engage the family were met with blank stares. He attributed it to fatigue. Soon, a new neighbor, Fiona, moved in. She quickly noticed the family's unusual behavior. She tried to strike up a conversation, but Mummy Pig and George were absorbed in their thoughts, their eyes wandering. Fiona felt a chill of unease. The invisible friend's games grew frightening. Objects levitated. Whispers turned into insistent murmurs. The family began to see things that weren't there. Peppa was terrified. She saw her parents and brother slipping away. One dreadful night, the invisible friend's influence reached its peak. It didn't take them physically, but transformed them into extensions of its own reality. Mummy Pig and George became completely absorbed, their eyes reflecting an otherworldly glow, movements synchronized with an unseen force. Daddy Pig realized the horror, but it was too late. His gaze also began to dim. Peppa, gripped by panic, tried to reach out to Daddy Pig, but he had almost succumbed. With Fiona's help, Peppa managed to escape the house, leaving her family behind. They watched from a distance as the pig family's house glowed with an unnatural light. The invisible friend continued its games, and its influence spread like a silent epidemic. The end was not in salvation, but in the chilling realization that some games never end, but merely escalate, drawing new participants into their eerie reality.